80 years from now, the goal is for the Waikato and Waipa rivers to be entirely safe for swimming and food gathering. That is the mandate of Te Ture Vaimana, the region's generational vision. But right now, agricultural runoff, specifically diffuse discharges of nitrogen, phosphorus, sediment, and bacteria, is clouding that vision, forcing authorities to aggressively regulate the land. Getting these regulations finalized took a grueling 12 years. The resulting framework, known as Plan Change 1, or PC1, required parsing thousands of public submissions and settling 24 complex appeals in the Environment Court. With the release of the final decision in June 2026, the regulatory limbo is over. The rules are locked in. For dairy farmers in the region, this commands immediate attention. Because dairy operations are a primary contributor of nitrogen leaching, the industry is entering a mandatory operational transition that changes the requirements for every milking platform in the catchment. That shift takes the form of a 5-step roadmap to bring dairy farms into full PC1 compliance. Change 1 is categorization. Low-risk farms become permitted activities without needing resource consent, while moderate to high-risk farms are controlled activities requiring consent. Change 2 addresses how risk is measured. For permitted farms, the burden of proof is simple. They use a streamlined nitrogen risk scorecard. Controlled farms face a higher bar, required to produce a detailed overseer nitrogen leaching loss rate assessment. This rigorous data check must be submitted at the time of the resource consent application and updated every 5 years to monitor any changes. These rules replace a broad blanket approach to regulation with a highly specific, data-driven system. Your administrative burden is now directly tied to your actual environmental footprint. Moving from paperwork to physical reality, Change 3 requires every farm to operate under a certified farm environment plan. This tailored, legally binding strategy maps out exactly how a property will neutralize its unique environmental risks. This strategy drives Change 4, mandatory mitigations. Farmers must adopt industry-developed good management practices on site. These practices carry real legal weight. They require physical actions on the ground to reduce discharges to the lowest practicable level within strictly enforced timeframes. The final and most physically demanding step in this compliance pipeline is Change 5, stock exclusion. For land up to 10 degrees, livestock must be permanently fenced off from water bodies within 5 years of the rules taking effect. If the terrain is between 10 and 15 degrees, farmers are given a 10-year deadline to complete fencing. These last 3 requirements pull abstract legal mandates out of the office and into the dirt, demanding heavy physical labor and precise land management. Meeting these physical requirements, especially widespread fencing and installing new mitigations, requires significant capital expenditure from farmers. Organizations like Federated Farmers spent years in court fighting to ensure these rules were tethered to practical deadlines and applied fairly to individual operating units. There is still a cloud of national uncertainty, with the central government planning to eventually introduce new legislation to replace the Resource Management Act entirely. But regardless of what happens in Wellington, Plan Change 1 is the enforceable legal reality for the Waikato right now. Environmental compliance is now a permanent part of the Waikato dairy farm's bottom line. Overseeing local discharges at the property level serves as the necessary starting point for an 80-year effort to restore the health of the rivers.